Welcome to Playful Beginnings, a podcast about the magic of play therapy for therapists, students, and anyone interested. In our podcast, we'll explore the deeper understanding of play therapy and the skills we use when working with children.
We hope to help you understand the why behind what we do and how it helps kids heal and grow. I'm Dr. Christy Opiola, a working play therapist and university professor in North Carolina.
I'm Dr. Maggie Parker, a play therapist and professor in DC. Hi, Christy.
Hey, Maggie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. It's the end of a term, so I'm sure we're both experiencing kind of the same overwhelm with grading and wrapping everything up. But overall, I'm really good.
Yes. So. Yeah. I don't want to look at my Blackboard needs grading because it's like 3 pages long.
Yeah, because I do this to myself every year that everything's at the end of the semester, but it's cumulative learning. So of course it's at the end of the semester, but it also makes it very time consuming as a faculty member.
Yes.
Because that all falls on us.
Yeah.
Our students get to write one paper and we get to grade however many students are in our class for whatever.
19.
So yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And then I love when I don't know if you do this, but I give a page limit and then I penalize if you're over the page limit. And I can't tell you how many of them are over the page limit.
Oh, yeah.
So I stop reading at the page limit. I go 2 pages more and then I don't read after that. So if you could not tell me in those pages, I can only grade, what the assignment states. But
that's kind of where I feel like I am just in life right now. So
mm-hmm.
I just got back from my trip to Istanbul and Rome to celebrate Harvey Peters and Nathan Slaughter's wedding. And I'm like, you know what? Life is about art and pasta.
And wonderful art and pasta.
Yeah. I've tried to recreate many of the meals and the kids are like, not your best, Mom. So
I'm trying.
Yeah, I don't have 2,000 years of cumulative experience, but it was so fun to look out our window and we were across the street from the Roman Forum. And
wow.
Here's something that's 2,000 years old and is still standing.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's one of the fascinating things about Rome, in case our listeners have not been. It literally is you turn a corner and there is a historical artifact there. The Roman Forum or the Colosseum or the Pantheon or whatever is in those areas. It literally is, you're in the business district and you turn around the corner and there's Trevi Fountain just right there.
Yep. And that's how it was in Istanbul too. They were here, it was neat. And then this is so random, but we had a tour in Istanbul and there was an obelisk, what it looks like. And she was like, yes, there's 6 of them. They were taken by Constantine from Egypt. And then there's one in Rome. And the day after the wedding, we were walking around with Nathan and Harvey and their families. And we look up and we're like, there's the other one. And so we saw one in Rome and we saw one in Istanbul. Yeah. Well, there we go. Look at that. We did it. So
that's awesome.
We're very proud of ourselves. But
yeah.
So yeah. What?
I said connecting history in multiple places.
Yeah. Yeah. It was neat. But so I'm feeling free and light and hopefully this stays for a while and I don't become tense again. But
yeah,
it's always fun to be able to come and talk to you. And for our listeners, we spent an hour just catching up. Now we're probably talk about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, because we didn't get to talk to each other for 2 weeks.
I know. So Again, please like and subscribe to the podcast. We're on YouTube and all of the major podcast platforms. Look at our Instagram accounts, playtherapyspace.com. You can sign up for newsletters that we're going to get better about doing.
One of our New Year's goals.
A New Year's goal for the business. And just, we want to keep supporting you. And we started talking last week, kind of what Dr. Mary Bennett talked to us about a little bit with executive functioning. And again, a listener, Tisha Moon, out of Family and Child Therapy, reached out and wanted us to talk about how play therapy aligns with different diagnoses and different aspects that children are coming in with. And so we started with executive functioning. And so our last episode was about kind of what is executive functioning And we wanted to go into what does this look like, and how does CCPT help support executive functioning in children.
Yeah.
Well,
So Maggie, let's transition to talk about how is CC helpful in supporting executive functioning.
Absolutely.
So I know for myself, I really think it is part of that regulatory component that really helps with the CCPT really helps in executive functioning, where kids get a chance to practice in the play therapy space in a safe environment, in a place where they feel supported in relationship and in an environment that is pretty consistent. That does help them practice those regulatory skills so that they are able to kind of be able to do the higher executive functioning skills without the emotional component taking over. Because we do know the brain, right? If we get emotionally dysregulated, it's harder for us to do the high order kind of thinking, right? Because the way information comes in and out of the brain, it has to go through the emotional regulation center first. And so I think within CCPT, as kids are getting practicing regulation, right? So having moments of being in regulation and not in regulation, they're kind of learning where those moments are for them with support. And I think that's one way that CCPT can help.
Right. I think that consistency helps with regulation. And then our own be with attitudes, not unconditional
Mm-hmm.
positive regard. And then our reflective skills of being able to say, you're really frustrated that that's not working the way you want it to. You're, throwing this because it didn't work, and so you're helping them kind of get that connection as to, okay, I am frustrated, because I think often we don't in our daily lives aren't thinking I'm lashing out because I'm frustrated about this. And so you're
Right.
helping them kind of process through that very transparently with unconditional and positive regard and genuineness and care, so that they can kind of internalize that, hopefully, so that they can recognize maybe when they're in school or at home that, oh, I'm getting frustrated because this isn't working the way I want it to. And that insight can really, and awareness can help then as they begin to develop those self-regulation skills in that moment. So I think it's that also that cognitive, oh, this is kind of what's happening with those reflections, I think is really beneficial.
Yeah, I think it also, just on a very base level, we're helping to name things. So as we're making connection, right, the child's understanding of, oh, this is what is happening inside my body is really important, and also gives them awareness as they feel it later. And then my hope is through the play environment and also the supportive environment, they're getting opportunities to practice other ways of managing it and other ways to respond, right? Which ultimately will enhance executive functioning down the road as it gets developed.
Absolutely. And it,
The
yeah,
other, no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I think some of the other skills that we use regularly in the playroom, returning responsibility, choice giving, really helps with that idea of kids getting the chance to not only feel the weight of responsibility, but also getting to experiment with what does it feel like to make a decision? What does it feel like to problem solve? And what does it look like when consequences happen based on my own actions and my own decision making? That will grow executive functioning. So the freedom of that is a helpful component for them to do it in. Again, I keep going back to the safe and consistent environment for them.
No, I think it's really important. I think that decision paralysis, what do I do? What do I do? And talking about that internal dialogue that kids develop, that, from a CCPT perspective, it may be that it doesn't quite fit that internal dialogue. And so by having that unconditional positive regard, they can play out and experience some of that internal dialogue, and we can reflect back as to what's going on. You're really worried that you're going to make the wrong choice, or you decided not to play with that anymore because you couldn't get it the way you wanted. And kind of naming those things helps them kind of be like, well, I wonder, could I do it, or how can I do it? And what happens when I do make a decision and I made a decision and I didn't like the action, but that's okay. And I'm still accepted for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can manage through that disappointment or that frustration, and I'm capable of doing those things. I think is really, really helpful for anyone in general, but also it helps with that executive functioning.
Yeah. And I know from clients that I see and some requests is maybe the challenge is executive functioning. So can you teach my child this, right, in the playroom? And remember, as a more non-directive, even though we are not undirected, right? We're just less directive than other approaches, and our belief in the child, right, and their ability and capacity to make decisions, to believe that they can get their state, can get themselves under control and other stuff. So they get to experience these moments instead of us going in and teaching executive functioning to children. So within the playroom and within child-centered play therapy, or with a child-centered play therapist, it's more about experiencing, doing, trying on than it is us sitting and directing kids on how to do that.
Yeah. And I think for the adults listening, I hope that makes sense for you, right? Because a lot of times it's so much easier at times to learn by doing. And sometimes we're scared of that because we don't want to fail or we don't want to do it wrong or whatever it may be.
Maggie, keep going. I'll be right back.
Okay. And so what I guess this idea that even as counselor educators that yes, there's a teaching component, but then it has to be applied. Even our accrediting body talks about how there's a skill and knowledge and a skill. And so kids are taught these things often, right? We teach them as in guidance lessons, we teach them in classrooms, and sometimes that's not enough and you have to experience it. And so we're giving them those opportunities within the playroom to be able to experience these things in real time with someone who is present and accepting and attuned to help them as they gain that awareness of themselves and their capacities and what their ability, I guess, to handle hard things. It's weird because Christy had to leave for a second, so now I'm just kind of giving a video lecture to myself and it feels awkward. I'm really glad that we have two people who do this podcast, so that's good. So we'll just pause for a sec. Yeah, so I just kind of how, I don't even know what I was just talking about.
I was talking about how we don't teach,
Yes,
and
and how,
that it's more like a do and experience and getting to practice, right, these skills that enhance executive functioning through emotional regulation, through cognitive flexibility, through problem solving, right, learning self-control, because those are all skills that we develop over our lifetime. Those are not necessarily skills that we're born with.
yeah,
And if we're not giving opportunities, then they could sit dormant for us. So the idea within CCPT is that we're giving them a chance to kind of be activated and practice so that they can develop these skills
in real time with a person who's able to be reflective and engaging and accepting.
yes.
I think that this is, I think, actually why CCPT is such a great thing for executive functioning, because they're getting people teaching them executive
Yeah.
functioning at school through guidance lessons, through classroom lessons, that, they have this a lot, and they can have the opportunity within CCPT for something very different that aligns very much with how children grow and develop and how adults grow and develop. A lot of times we
Yeah.
learn through doing as opposed to through someone teaching us. And
Mm-hmm.
so by giving them this opportunity within CCPT, I think it's really augments that development, even though it's very different than what many people think needs to happen for executive functioning, of teaching them how to do it, that we're giving them the opportunity in real time with someone who is there with them to experience these things. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
really important.
Yeah. And I also think it's that idea of, because I don't want our listeners, if you're a teacher or if you're a parent, remember part of our job is that this is our sole focus,
Right.
right? And as a teacher, your focus is 32 children in your classroom or however many kids are in your classroom. And so it's much harder to sit and maybe work on some of these skills. Yes, you have them embedded in your classroom. Maybe you are doing You have a bulletin board about growth mindset. You guys talk about growth mindset, but the practicing of growth mindset or the practicing of these other things that I know are popular in a classroom setting, right? It's harder to do when one kid is really struggling in that area. So that is where in a therapeutic space, right, where we really get to give the time, give the emotional support, give our whole attuned attention to the child to be able to do that. And I do want to say too that another thing that I'm really mindful of, both as a therapist and an instructor, right, is that sometimes we have this push to get this done quickly. And these are really hard skills to learn. They don't grow overnight, they don't grow with a single conversation. They do take time, they do take practice, they do take, right, multiple opportunities to learn them. And so it may take a little bit longer than sitting and giving a lecture and the kid being able to verbally share what they remember from what you're saying, but the doing part might take longer. And so I think that's the thing about CCPT is our patients with children that we're working with or the teams that we're working with is giving them opportunity to practice this over and over, knowing they're going to make mistakes, knowing it's not going to look perfect, and going back to those core conditions of really valuing them, having a belief and trust in them that they're going to get there, I think is what gives kids the chutzpah to keep going and to keep trying this within the play therapy space.
1,000%. Yeah. And it's just, I think that is something that we are very lucky and able to be afforded within the child-centered space,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that it doesn't all, you can't, it's very, when we talk about doing group play, we talk about 2 kids. I can't imagine
Or
having,
3.
yeah, but 32 children, God bless y'all. I mean,
or even parents at home. I don't want to
oh,
minimize parents either, but you're
right.
tasked with multiple things yourself, right? You're working on multi-step things all at the same time. You are multitasking left and right. So having those, yes, you can create time, but you can't do that typically for a full hour, where that's part of our job is to spend 45 minutes with a child working on these skills and helping them. So helping them with impulse control, helping them with shifting perspectives, with trying on different solutions or different roles, allowing them to recall, which is not something we really talk about in play therapy. But when I set a limit and I'm really consistent on that limit in play therapy, and then, we leave for the week, and remember, a week is a lifetime to a child, that they can recall that skill in the next session is an important component. And it might take us a few sessions for them to be able to recall prior sessions limits, right? Because I'm being consistent, then they can start to recall it in the next session, coming up with different strategies to solve problems through their symbolic play. Their ability to be in the lead, right, is also an executive functioning skill. How to overcome obstacles. All of those things are happening in the play therapy space on a regular basis. And I think as play therapists, these are things we need to be thinking about as we're talking with parents. What happened in the session, right, that does meet the request of the parent without folding to moving towards teaching or something else. And I think as a new therapist, that ends up what happening is the pressure from the parent forces us to think we need to do something different where we're already working on those skills, right? We may be going about it differently than teachers go about it, or that the school is requesting, or whatever those components are.
Well, and I think something else that could be helpful to talk about is how what they're doing in session aligns with this. And so I've had several kids that are struggling with executive functioning, with kind of melting down on emotional regulation if they get something wrong, organization. And so sometimes that means that they come into our playroom and Christy's texting Christy Perryman right now. It's her
I
birthday.
know, it's her birthday.
It's her
And we
birthday.
have back
Happy
to
birthday.
back birthdays.
Yes. Christy's
I did
birthday
not know
was
that. 2 Christies
December 2nd
yesterday.
and
Yes,
Dr. Perryman's is
Perryman,
3rd. So
December.
she just I texted the both of them happy birthdays, but I knew you got the text because I also just got it.
Yes.
So, but sometimes I will have kids, they do the same things over and over and over again. And it could be telling me about Minecraft. and what they're able to do and what they're, you're really proud of yourself. You figured that out. You worked really hard. It could be that they challenge themselves to see how many times they can hit the ball with the bat without it falling, or how high they can get it. And a lot of that is that, am I capable? Can I keep working at this? Do I have persistence? What happens if I fail? Is that going to be okay? And so those are the things that you can talk to parents about, is how they're developing those executive functioning skills, that emotional regulation, that perseverance, that grit, and understanding their capacities through play. And so it's kind of thinking about what it is that they're doing from that lens. Now, they could be doing the same thing and not working on executive functioning. Maybe they're working on something different. And it's understanding the child and their presenting concern and what's going on, but thinking about it from the lens of where the child is, and then how that translates to what it is that their presenting concern is and how it's aligning. And so I think that's when you're talking to parents, being able to make those connections for them, because the skills we've talked about, they remain the same. However, the ways in which they're internalized or their purpose may differ based upon the reason why the child's there.
Yeah.
And be able to translate, I think, to parents.
Yeah. And I do want to say, not everything our intentions for everything we do is
Right.
not about helping with executive functioning, but I do think a lot of the stuff we do in the playroom enhances executive functioning, right? It's kind of the building blocks to enhancing executive functioning. And I'm going to look this up really quick, but there's a great article out there. It's called The Building Blocks for Learning. They have a white paper. It's from Turnaround for Children. But they talk about this idea of what is going to help a child in a classroom, and a lot of the base components of those building blocks, right? It looks like a tower. And it's similar, I think, to Maslow in a way of these things are needed before you can move up. But a lot of those things are the skills that kids work on in play therapy. So it's about self-regulation. It's about connection and relationship. It's about awareness, both of self and others. It's about coping strategies and how do we manage emotional stress or environmental stresses or all these other things, right? Which is what often brings a kid into therapy are the emotional stressors, or how they are or are not managing all of those components, right? And then that leads to these ideas of things about agency. It leads to self-efficacy. It goes to academic tenacity. It goes to resilience. It goes to this idea of cognitive curiosity, self-direction, right? Social embeddedness, all of those things from the building blocks of learning, right? All those base skills are stuff that we work on in play therapy. And although may not be our goal for the session, but I do think a lot of what we do helps them to be successful, both in the school environment, the playground with their friends, on their sports teams, in their family structures, right?
Awesome.
So,
yeah. No, absolutely. And I think just thinking too as to how we talk to parents about these things, I think going through some examples of if they are very impulsive, right? So a lot of kids are coming in because of impulsivity, they struggle staying on task, all of those things. And so when we are setting clear and consistent limits, we are providing choices and opportunities. That is a way in which they are beginning to develop and experience that impulse control, if you will. And the cognitive flexibility of, I'm the monster, now you're this. Okay, now we're switching, right? The switching roles, exploring different, like you said, trying on different personas and experiences. They're doing that through their play within that space with us. Even working memory, right? They're kind of often they go through repeated play themes or repeated play. And okay, last week there was a limit on this. Christy, you were saying, am I going to be able to remember it this time or is it next time? So all of these things are developing these aspects, even the planning and problem solving, by providing them control and they get to direct their play. They often, I'm sure you see this too. First, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. And oh, wait, I didn't do this first. And so then I'm going to do that. And so they're working through that as they're playing. And so, And if they experience an obstacle, maybe they leave that during one session and you reflect, oh, you were really frustrated. It didn't work the way you wanted. You're going to go do something else. And then maybe the next time it's like you kept going. You're working really hard to do that. And so they're kind of being able to do those things in ways I think that inherently are part of what we're doing. But it could be helpful to be able to share that with parents. And those are just, I think, some key components that might be helpful to relate, maybe.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm trying to think anything else. It cultivates their internal capacity. I think that's for regulation, for flexibility, for decision making through that self-directed play, and then the consistent empathic and unconditional regard in the presence that we. So, yeah, I hope that's helpful.
I think you guys let us know. Was that
Yeah.
helpful?
Was it
And
helpful?
I want to put a big shout out to Dr. Mary Morrison Bennett, because I think she's the one who really got us thinking about this. I know she has plans to write on this and do more about CCPT and executive functioning. And so our goal was not to like steal her thunder in any way. It was just, I think we got really excited and wanted to, we've been thinking about it a lot since our conversation with her, which brought us to today.
Yeah, because I think I struggled with how to relate these two things. And so it
Mm-hmm.
was beneficial for me to be able to start doing this research and delving into it and talking about it, because as an auditory processor, it's really helpful for me to talk to you about it.
Yes.
So hopefully if you're listening, then that's helpful too. And we've had a couple people reach out about consultation groups. If this is something that you're interested in, I might have some time in the next semester. And so reach out to us either through info@playtherapyspace.com or Maggie@playtherapyspace.com or Christy@playtherapyspace.com and let us know. You can email us. You can sign up for the newsletter that we will get out, or you can direct message us in our Instagram or Facebook. And we're on Pinterest and YouTube and, all of the things that.
It's a lot of executive functioning for us.
I don't have a list. And that I think that's what our goal for when we're hopefully together over the winter holiday. Hopefully we'll be able to do an episode or two again together, and we can maybe even
But
make
we
some.
also do a lot of planning for the new year when we have these times together. And so be on the lookout. Starting in the new year, we do have a new chapter coming out where we're going to look at not diagnose specific, but maybe kind of root components that may bring children into play therapy and how we view them from a CCPT lens and how we might tackle them in therapy. We are going to be pulling from research from that. So we'll be able to share with you guys who are the key people who have really leaned in and studied in these parts in case you're looking for further resources. And please remember that through the Center for Play Therapy, they do have their evidence-based website where you can kind of get a summary of specific studies that are out there in play therapy, and you can look. We'll make sure that that's included in our new chapter coming out since we finished our chapter on skills. This is kind of one of the next steps that we wanted to take. If there are areas that you guys are curious about that we haven't talked about, please let us know. We want this to be helpful for you. And then last and finally, don't forget to like and subscribe to our page. It helps us know who's listening, where you guys are tuning in from. And we just really appreciate y'all
So much. Well, thank you, Christy.
so much. Thanks. Have a great week, everyone. And we will see you next week. We may take the holidays off just to give you guys a heads up. Maggie and I are still in discussion if we're going to, take the week between Christmas and New Year's off of not having a podcast so that we can enjoy our families as well. So please know that may be coming.
Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
Chris.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.